My name is Elena. I'm 36 years old, and I'm standing in a hospital recovery room, watching my husband Marcus walk down the aisle with another woman on a tablet screen that my surgeon is showing me. Let me say that again so you understand exactly what happened. While I was supposed to be unconscious on an operating table, my husband of 9 years was getting married to his mistress at a beachside ceremony in the Bahamas. He'd scheduled my surgery specifically for this day. He'd told me it was urgent, life-threatening, couldn't wait another week. He'd kissed me goodbye in the pre-op room, told me he loved me, promised he'd be right there when I woke up, and then he got on a plane to marry someone else. The only reason I know this, the only reason I'm not still lying on that table while Marcus commits bigamy, is because my surgeon, Dr. Sarah Chen, is a thorough, suspicious, brilliant woman who knew something was very, very wrong. But I'm getting ahead of myself. Let me tell you how I got here. Let me tell you about the 9 years I spent loving a man who was planning to destroy me. Let me tell you how the person who was supposed to cut me open ended up saving my life instead. If you want to know how deep this betrayal goes, if you want to hear how a man convinced his wife she was dying so he could abandon her and steal everything she owned, hit that like button right now. Subscribe to this channel, because what happens next is going to shock you. Comment below and tell me what city you're watching from, what time it is there. I need to know I'm not alone in this rage. I need witnesses to what I'm about to do to the man who tried to destroy me. 9 months ago, I had everything. I was a senior marketing executive at Crawford Industries, pulling in $250,000 a year. I had a beautiful house in Westchester County, the kind with the wraparound porch and the maple trees in the yard that turned gold in October. I had a husband who was charming, successful, and seemingly devoted, Marcus Wright, 42 years old, real estate developer, 6 feet tall with that silver at the temples, thing that makes men look distinguished instead of old. Everyone loved Marcus. My parents adored him. My friends thought I was lucky. At every dinner party, people would comment on how attentive he was, how he always had his hand on my back, how he looked at me like I was the only woman in the world. What a performance that turned out to be. We'd met 10 years ago at a charity gala. I was wearing a red dress. He sent champagne to my table with a note that said, "A woman this beautiful should never buy her own drinks." It was cheesy, but it worked. We talked all night. He was funny, ambitious, confident. He told me about his real estate projects, his plans to build affordable housing developments. He seemed like a good man with good intentions. I fell hard. We all do, don't we? We fall for the mask, for the performance, for the version of themselves they show us before they feel secure enough to reveal the monster underneath. We got married a year later. Small wedding, just family and close friends. I wore my grandmother's veil. Marcus cried during his vows. "You are my everything," he said, holding my hands at that altar. "I promise to love you, protect you, and cherish you for all the days of my life." Liar, liar, liar. For 9 years, I believed him. For 9 years, I thought we were building a life together. We bought the house in Westchester. We talked about having children someday, when the time was right, when his business was more stable, when my career had plateaued and I could take maternity leave without derailing everything. There were red flags. Of course there were. There are always red flags. I just didn't see them because I was too busy being the perfect wife, too busy trusting completely, too busy living in the fantasy I thought was my life. Marcus traveled constantly for work, or so he said. He'd be gone for days, sometimes weeks, for development projects in Miami, Austin, Phoenix. He always came back with presents, jewelry, designer handbags, expensive perfume. I thought he was being romantic. I thought he felt guilty for being away so much. Now I know he was buying my silence, my compliance, My willful blindness. He was secretive about his phone, always keeping it face down, always stepping into another room to take calls. When I asked about it, he'd say it was work stuff, confidential development deals, nothing I needed to worry about. I believed him, because why wouldn't I? He was my husband. Husbands don't lie about everything, except when they do. There was the money situation. Marcus always said his business was doing well, but he never seemed to have much cash. Our joint account was modest. He said he reinvested everything back into projects, that it would pay off eventually, that we just needed to be patient. Meanwhile, I was paying for everything: the mortgage, the groceries, the utilities, the property taxes on our house, the insurance. All of it came out of my salary. I didn't mind. I thought we were a team. I thought marriage meant pooling resources, supporting each other through lean times and good times. I thought I was helping him build something. I was just being robbed. And then, 9 months ago, everything changed. It started with stomach pain. Not dramatic, life-threatening pain. Just this persistent ache in my lower abdomen that wouldn't go away. I ignored it for weeks, thinking it was stress from work. I was managing a major product launch. 14-hour days, constant pressure, barely sleeping. Of course, my body was complaining, but the pain got worse. Sharp, stabbing sensations that would double me over in the middle of meetings. Bloating so severe I looked 6 months pregnant. Fatigue that made it hard to get out of bed in the morning. "You should see a doctor," Marcus said one evening, watching me wince as I tried to eat dinner. He sounded so concerned, so caring. "This isn't normal, Elena. Promise me, you'll make an appointment." So I did. I went to my regular gynecologist, Dr. Patricia Moore. She'd been my doctor for 15 years, knew my medical history inside and out. She examined me, ran some tests, and frowned at the ultrasound screen. "Elena," she said carefully, "I'm seeing something unusual. There's a mass on your left ovary. It's large, about 7 centimeters. We need to run more tests, but I want you to see a specialist." A mass. That word hung in the air like a death sentence. Mass meant tumor. Tumor meant possibly cancer. Cancer meant everything was about to change. Before I continue, please hit that like button and subscribe to the channel. Drop a comment telling me where you're watching from. I love hearing from you, and if this story resonates with you, share it with someone who needs to hear it. Dr. Moore referred me to an oncological surgeon. "Just as a precaution," she said, but I could see the worry in her eyes. "Dr. Sarah Chen is the best in the city. If anyone can help you, it's her." I drove home in a daze. My hands were shaking on the steering wheel. A mass, 7 centimeters. Specialist, surgeon. The words kept looping through my head like a nightmare I couldn't wake up from. When I got home, Marcus was waiting. I told him everything, and he pulled me into his arms. "We'll get through this," he whispered into my hair. "Whatever it is, whatever happens, I'm here. I'm not going anywhere." The lies we tell, the promises we make, when we're already planning to break them. My first appointment with Dr. Sarah Chen was 2 weeks later. Dr. Chen was a woman in her early 50s, Korean American, with sharp eyes and an even sharper mind. She didn't sugarcoat anything. She looked at my scans, examined me thoroughly, and gave me the news straight. "The mass is concerning," she said, pulling up the ultrasound images on her computer screen. "Given its size and appearance, we need to remove it surgically and biopsy it. There's a possibility it's cancerous, but we won't know until we get inside and look." "How soon?" I asked. My voice sounded small, frightened. "I'd like to schedule you within the next month," Dr. Chen said. "Do you have any significant dates coming up? Travel plans? Work obligations?" I thought about it. My big product launch was in 3 weeks. After that, I had nothing urgent. "End of May?" I suggested. "After the 20th? Dr. Chen pulled up her calendar. "I have an opening on June 6th. Does that work for you? June 6th. Just over a month away. It felt both too soon and too far away. Yes, I said. June 6th. When I told Marcus that evening, he reacted strangely. June 6th? He repeated. His face had gone pale. Are you sure it has to be that specific date? That's when Dr. Chen has an opening, I said. Why? Is that a problem? No, he said quickly. Too quickly. I have a development meeting that week. In the Bahamas. Big investors. I've been planning it for months. The Bahamas. That should have been my first clue right there. Can you reschedule? I asked. I'd really like you there when I wake up from surgery. Marcus looked conflicted. He paced the kitchen, running his hands through his hair. Finally, he said, "Let me see what I can do. Maybe I can move the meeting. This is more important." He never moved the meeting. Over the next few weeks, Marcus became increasingly weird about the surgery date. He kept asking if Dr. Chen had any other openings, any other possible dates. He suggested I get a second opinion from a different surgeon who might have different availability. I don't want a different surgeon, I told him. Dr. Chen is the best. Everyone says so. But what if she's not available when you need her? Marcus pressed. What if there's an emergency and she has to reschedule? I didn't understand his obsession with the timing. I chalked it up to anxiety, about my health, about the possibility of cancer, about losing me. I thought he was being a worried husband. I was such a fool. 2 weeks before the surgery, Marcus announced he couldn't reschedule his Bahamas meeting. "I'm so sorry, baby," he said. And he actually looked sorry. Another brilliant performance. These investors, they're flying in from Dubai. We've been planning this for 6 months. If I cancel, we lose a $50 million deal. I tried to move it. I really did. But they won't budge. It's fine, I lied. My mom can be there. And my sister. I'll be back the next day, Marcus promised. I'll take the first flight home. You'll barely even notice I'm gone. But he seemed relieved. That's what I remember now. Looking back, he seemed relieved that I'd let him off the hook so easily. The week before surgery, Marcus was sweet, abnormally sweet. He took me to my favorite restaurant. He bought me flowers every day. He told me constantly that he loved me, that everything would be fine, that we'd get through this together. And the whole time, he was planning his wedding. The morning of June 6th came too fast. I had to be at the hospital at 6 a.m. My surgery was scheduled for 8 a.m. Marcus drove me, holding my hand the entire way, kissing my knuckles at red lights. "I love you so much," he kept saying. "You're going to be fine. Dr. Chen is the best. This is just a precaution." In the pre-op room, I changed into a hospital gown. The nurses started my IV, gave me medications to help me relax. Marcus sat next to my bed, stroking my hair. "I have to leave for the airport at 7, he said quietly. "But I'll call you the second I land, and I'll be back tomorrow. I promise." Dr. Chen came in to go over the surgery one more time. She explained the procedure, the risks, the recovery time. And then she turned to Marcus. "Will you be here when she wakes up?" Dr. Chen asked. It was a simple question, but something in her tone made it sound like a test. "I have a business meeting," Marcus said. "In the Bahamas. My mother-in-law will be here." Dr. Chen's expression didn't change, but I saw something flicker in her eyes. Judgment, maybe, or suspicion. "The Bahamas," she repeated. "How long will you be gone?" "Just overnight," Marcus said. "I'll be back tomorrow afternoon." Dr. Chen nodded slowly. Then she looked at me. "Elena, do you have all of your affairs in order? Power of attorney? Will? Medical directives?" The question seemed odd, overly thorough for what was supposed to be a routine surgery. I think so," I said. "Why?" "Just standard procedure," Dr. Chen said. but she was looking at Marcus as she said it, really looking at him, like she was trying to see through his skin to whatever was underneath. At 6:50 a.m., Marcus kissed me goodbye. "I love you," he said against my lips. "I'll see you tomorrow. Everything is going to be fine." And then he left. I was wheeled into the operating room at 7:45 a.m. Dr. Chen and her team were prepping. The anesthesiologist introduced himself, explained what would happen. I'd go to sleep, wake up in recovery, and my mom would be there. Simple, routine, standard. Except it wasn't. What I didn't know, what I wouldn't find out until much later, was that Dr. Sarah Chen had spent the previous week investigating my husband. It started with the Bahamas comment. Something about it bothered her. What kind of husband books a trip to the Bahamas on the same day as his wife's surgery for a potentially cancerous mass? What kind of business meeting can't be rescheduled for something this important? So Dr. Chen did something most surgeons wouldn't do. She looked into it. She started by casually asking me questions during my pre-op appointments. How long had Marcus and I been married? What did he do for work? How was our relationship? Did I have any concerns about the surgery? About recovery? About my support system at home? I answered honestly because I had nothing to hide. I told her Marcus was a real estate developer, that we'd been married 9 years, that our relationship was strong. I told her my mom would be staying with me during recovery, that my sister would help, that I had a whole support system in place. But Dr. Chen kept pressing about Marcus, about his business, his travel schedule, his involvement in my medical care. And something about my answers didn't sit right with her. Doctors develop instincts, Dr. Chen told me later. After 25 years of seeing patients, you learn to recognize when something is off. And everything about your husband was off. So she did what any smart, suspicious woman would do. She Googled him, and that's when things started to unravel. Dr. Chen found Marcus's real estate development company website. She found his social media profiles. She found articles about his projects, his investments, his business deals, and she found photos. Lots and lots of photos. Photos of Marcus at charity galas with a woman who wasn't me. Photos of Marcus at groundbreaking ceremonies with the same woman. Photos of Marcus at industry conferences, award dinners, holiday parties, all with this beautiful, young blonde woman by his side. The photos were recent, some from just a few months ago, and in every single one, Marcus had his arm around her waist, or his hand on her back, or his lips on her cheek. They looked like a couple. They looked like they were in love. Dr. Chen dug deeper. She found the woman's Instagram account. Her name was Amber Phillips, 28 years old, interior designer, and according to her social media, she was in a serious relationship with someone she referred to as my love and my everything. The photos on Amber's Instagram were even more damning. Beach vacations with Marcus, romantic dinners, weekend getaways, all posted publicly for anyone to see. Except I'd never seen them because I didn't know this woman existed. But the worst part, the absolute worst part, was what Dr. Chen found on June 3rd, 3 days before my surgery. Amber posted a photo of a wedding dress, a beautiful, flowing, beaded gown with a cathedral train. The caption read, "3 more days until I marry my best friend. I can't wait to be Mrs. Right. Number, Bridetobe. Number, destination wedding. Number, Bahamas wedding. Mrs. Right." Marcus's last name. The wedding was scheduled for June 6th, the same day as my surgery. Dr. Chen spent the next 2 days gathering more evidence. She found the wedding venue website, a luxury resort in Nassau. She found photos from the bridal shower, the bachelorette party, the engagement party. She found a wedding registry at Bloomingdale's and Crate and Barrel, listing Marcus Wright and Amber Phillips as the happy couple. And she found something even more disturbing. She found evidence that Marcus had changed my life insurance beneficiary 6 months ago, naming his mother instead of himself. It was a strange move, one that suggested he was planning something. The morning of my surgery, Dr. Chen made a decision. She wasn't going to let this man abandon his wife during a major surgery so he could commit bigamy in the Bahamas. But she also couldn't tell me before the surgery. The stress could be dangerous. Anesthesia complications increase when patients are emotionally distressed. So, she did something radical. She decided to delay the surgery, not cancel it, that would raise too many questions, but delay it just long enough to catch Marcus in the act. I was already on the operating table when Dr. Chen made her move. The anesthesiologist had started the IV sedation. I was getting drowsy, my vision blurring at the edges. Dr. Chen stood over me, masked and gowned, looking down with those sharp, intelligent eyes. "Elena," she said calmly, "I'm going to need to delay the surgery for a few hours. There's been a scheduling conflict in the OR. We'll get you started this afternoon instead." I tried to protest, but the sedation was pulling me under. The last thing I remember was Dr. Chen saying, "Trust me, this is for the best." I woke up 3 hours later, in a recovery room, groggy and confused. My mom was sitting next to my bed, holding my hand. She looked worried. "What happened?" I mumbled. "Why aren't I?" "The surgery was delayed," my mom said. Dr. Chen said, "There was a problem with the equipment. They're going to do it this afternoon." But that's not what happened. What actually happened was this. While I was sedated, Dr. Chen made a phone call to the wedding venue in Nassau. She pretended to be a wedding coordinator from the resort's corporate office, conducting a routine quality check on upcoming events. "I just want to confirm the Wright Phillips wedding scheduled for today," Dr. Chen said, her voice professional and authoritative. "Ceremony at 2 p.m. local time. Reception to follow. Is everything on schedule?" "Yes, ma'am," the venue coordinator confirmed. "The ceremony is about to start. The bride and groom are absolutely glowing." "Perfect," Dr. Chen said. "And just to confirm, the groom's full name is Marcus Wright, correct? Date of birth, the 15th of November 1982. "That's correct," the coordinator said. Dr. Chen thanked her and hung up. Then she did something even more extraordinary. She called a colleague who was vacationing in Nassau and asked him to crash the wedding. Not literally crash it, but to attend as a guest, blend in with the crowd, and record everything on video. Dr. Chen's colleague, Dr. James Liu, happened to be staying at the same resort. He thought it was insane, but he agreed, because doctors, especially the good ones, look out for each other. And Dr. Chen had explained enough of the situation for Dr. Liu to understand that this was a matter of protecting a patient from a predator. Dr. Liu showed up at the wedding venue at 1:45 p.m. He blended in with the guests, found a seat in the back, and pulled out his phone. And at 2 p.m. Nassau time, 3 p.m. New York time, Marcus Wright married Amber Phillips in a beautiful beachside ceremony while his legal wife lay in a hospital recovery room, believing she'd just had surgery. Dr. Liu recorded everything: the processional, the vows, the kiss, the celebration. Marcus, in a white linen suit, looking happier than I'd ever seen him. Amber, in her beaded gown, crying tears of joy. And then Dr. Liu sent the video to Dr. Chen. Dr. Chen waited until I was fully awake, until the sedation had completely worn off. My mom was still there, looking concerned. The nurses were monitoring my vitals. Everything seemed normal, except I hadn't actually had surgery. That's when Dr. Chen walked in with her tablet. "Elena," she said, her voice gentle but firm, "I need to show you something, and I need you to stay calm while you watch it." I stared at Dr. Chen, confused. "Show me what? What's going on? Did you do the surgery?" "No," Dr. Chen said. "I didn't do the surgery, because I discovered something this week that made me realize your husband is putting you in danger." "Danger?" My mom stood up, alarmed. What are you talking about? Dr. Chen turned her tablet toward me. On the screen was a video, paused on the image of a beach, white chairs arranged in rows, an arch covered in flowers. This is happening right now, Dr. Chen said. In Nassau, at a luxury resort, and your husband is the groom. She pressed play, and I watched Marcus get married to another woman. I watched him smile as she walked down the aisle. I watched him say vows. I watched him slip a ring on her finger. I watched him kiss her, while their guests applauded. I watched my husband commit bigamy while I lay in a hospital bed, believing he was at a business meeting. The video ended. The room was completely silent, except for the steady beep of the heart monitor I was still connected to. That beep was getting faster, louder, matching my racing pulse. That's not possible, I whispered. That can't be real. Marcus wouldn't. Elena. Dr. Chen sat down next to my bed. I'm so sorry, but this is real. Your husband scheduled your surgery for today specifically because he knew you'd be unconscious and wouldn't discover what he was doing. My mom was crying. I wasn't crying. I was numb. Completely, utterly numb. How long? I asked. My voice didn't sound like mine. How long has this been going on? Dr. Chen pulled up more evidence on her tablet. Photos from Amber's social media. Articles about Marcus's business, where Amber was identified as his girlfriend. A wedding registry. An engagement announcement from 4 months ago. Based on what I found, they've been together for at least 3 years, Dr. Chen said. They got engaged in February. They've been planning this wedding for months. 3 years. 3 years of lies. 3 years of Marcus living a double life, playing the devoted husband at home while building a future with someone else. If this story is making your blood boil like mine was, make sure you're subscribed and hit that notification bell so you don't miss what happens next. Trust me, the revenge gets so much better. Your support means everything to this channel. Why would he do this? My mom asked. If he wanted to be with her, why not just divorce Elena? Why go through this elaborate charade? Dr. Chen's expression darkened. That's what concerned me. That's why I delayed the surgery. Because, when I looked into your financial situation, Elena, I discovered something disturbing. She pulled up more documents. Life insurance policies, property deeds, bank account statements. Your house is in your name only, Dr. Chen said. You've been paying the mortgage for 9 years. The deed shows you as the sole owner. I nodded slowly. Marcus said it was better for tax purposes. He said his business had debt that could complicate things if his name was on the property. Your life insurance policy is for $2 million, Dr. Chen continued. And, until 6 months ago, Marcus was the beneficiary. But in December, he changed it to his mother. He said it was for estate planning. I mumbled. He said if something happened to both of us, his mother would need the money to settle our affairs. Dr. Chen looked at me with such pity. Elena, I think your husband was planning to kill you, or at least make sure you died during this surgery. The heart monitor started beeping even faster. A nurse came rushing in, but Dr. Chen waved her off. Think about it, Dr. Chen said. He marries Amber in Nassau today. You die during surgery, supposedly from complications. He returns tomorrow as the grieving husband. The life insurance goes to his mother, who can then transfer it to him without raising suspicions. He inherits your house, your assets, everything you own. And within a few months, he quietly moves Amber into your home, and everyone thinks he's just moving on with his life after a terrible tragedy. But the surgery, I said weakly. You're the one doing the surgery. You wouldn't. I wouldn't. But there are ways to ensure complications. Your husband is friendly with one of the nurses I checked. He's been having affairs with multiple women, Elena. It's not just Amber. And this particular nurse has access to medications, to equipment, to everything that would be needed to cause a fatal mistake. The room was spinning. I couldn't breathe. Everything I thought I knew about my life, about my marriage, about Marcus, all of it was crumbling like sand. What do I do? I whispered. What the hell do I do? Dr. Chen leaned forward. You fight back. You gather evidence. You make sure he pays for every lie, every betrayal, every moment he spent planning your destruction. And I'm going to help you. Over the next 6 hours, while Marcus was at his wedding reception in Nassau, Dr. Chen and I built a case that would destroy him. First, Dr. Chen connected me with her lawyer friend, Patricia Wong, who specialized in fraud and matrimonial law. Patricia came to the hospital immediately, and we spent 2 hours going over every detail of my marriage, my finances, my relationship with Marcus. This is one of the worst cases I've seen, Patricia said, shaking her head. Bigamy, fraud, conspiracy to commit insurance fraud, possibly even attempted murder if we can prove he was planning to sabotage the surgery. He's looking at serious prison time. I want him destroyed, I said. And I meant it. The numbness had worn off. Now I was angry, furiously, violently angry. I want him to lose everything. He will, Patricia promised. But we need to be strategic. We need to catch him in the lies. We need to make sure he can't wiggle out of this. So we made a plan. Patricia filed an emergency motion to freeze all of Marcus's assets. She contacted the police and provided all of Dr. Chen's evidence, the wedding video, the social media posts, proof of the bigamous marriage. She filed for an immediate divorce and an immediate restraining order. And then we set the trap. I texted Marcus from my hospital bed. A simple, sweet message. Surgery went well. Doctor says everything looks good. Missing you. Can't wait for you to come home tomorrow. Love you so much. He responded within minutes. Thank God, baby. I was so worried. I'll be on the first flight home. Love you more than anything. Liar. 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 Dr. Chen kept me in the hospital overnight for observation. Really, we just needed to keep me safe and give the police time to gather evidence and prepare for Marcus's return. The next morning, June 7th, Marcus boarded his flight home from Nassau. He had no idea what was waiting for him. I was discharged from the hospital at 10 a.m. Patricia had arranged for me to go directly to a safe house, a friend's apartment in Manhattan, where Marcus couldn't find me. My mom packed a bag from my house, grabbing clothes and toiletries and important documents. And then we waited. Marcus's flight landed at JFK at 2 p.m. He texted me, "Just landed. Getting an Uber home. Can't wait to see you." I didn't respond. By the time Marcus pulled into our driveway in Westchester at 3:30 p.m., there were 3 police cars waiting for him. Patricia had arranged for me to watch via video call from the safe house. I saw everything. Marcus got out of his Uber, still in vacation clothes, looking tanned and relaxed. He was smiling, probably thinking about his new wife, about his wedding night, about how well his plan had worked. Then he saw the police cars. The smile disappeared. Marcus Wright, the lead detective, a woman named Sharon Reeves, approached him with her badge out. Yes, Marcus looked confused. What's going on? Is Elena okay? Did something happen during the surgery? Elena is fine, Detective Reeves said coldly. But you're under arrest for bigamy, fraud, conspiracy to commit insurance fraud, and identity theft. I watched Marcus's face go white. What? I don't understand. There must be some mistake. No mistake, Detective Reeves said, pulling out her handcuffs. We have video evidence of your wedding yesterday in Nassau, while you were still legally married to Elena Wright. That's bigamy, Mr. Wright. A felony. I can explain, Marcus stammered. That wedding, it wasn't legal. It was just a ceremony, a symbolic thing. We have the marriage certificate. Detective Reeves interrupted. Filed with the Bahamas government. Completely legal, which makes you a bigamist. They cuffed him right there in the driveway. Read him his rights. Searched his luggage and found wedding photos, a copy of the marriage certificate, receipts from the resort. I want to call my wife, Marcus said desperately. I need to talk to Elena. She'll understand. She'll explain. Your wife is the one who filed the charges, Detective Reeves said. She knows everything, Marcus. The affair, the secret wedding, the insurance fraud, the plot to kill her during surgery. She knows it all. I watched Marcus's legs give out. He literally collapsed to his knees, still handcuffed, sobbing. No, he was saying. No, no, no. She can't know. She wasn't supposed to find out. The surgery. She was supposed to. He stopped himself. But it was too late. He'd already confessed on camera. I was supposed to what? Detective Reeves asked, crouching down to his level. Die during the surgery? Is that what you were going to say? Marcus started crying harder. I didn't mean it like that. I never wanted her to die. I just wanted to move on with my life. I just wanted to be happy. By committing bigamy and fraud and possibly murder, Detective Reeves said flatly. You wanted to be happy by destroying your wife. That's not happiness, Mr. Wright. That's evil. They loaded him into the police car. As they drove away, Patricia turned off the video feed and looked at me. Got him, she said simply. He just confessed to conspiracy to commit murder on camera. That's 25 to life if we can prove premeditation. I should have felt victorious. I should have felt satisfied. But all I felt was empty. 9 years of my life. 9 years of loving someone who was planning to kill me. The news broke that evening. Westchester man arrested for bigamy and insurance fraud. The story was everywhere. Local news, national news, viral on social media. Everyone wanted to know about the real estate developer who got married while his wife was in surgery. The details were salacious enough to capture national attention. The double life, the secret wedding, the insurance fraud, the plot to sabotage the surgery. Within 24 hours, I was getting interview requests from every major news outlet. Good Morning America, The Today Show, CNN. Everyone wanted to hear my side of the story. Patricia advised me to stay silent for now. Let the evidence speak for itself, she said. We'll tell your story in court. But the evidence was speaking, and it was damning. The police investigation uncovered everything. They found emails between Marcus and the OR nurse, Jessica Chen, no relation to Dr. Sarah Chen, discussing ensuring the surgery doesn't go too well. They found text messages where Marcus promised Jessica money if she could make sure Elena doesn't wake up. Jessica was arrested within 48 hours of Marcus's arrest. She confessed immediately, made a deal with prosecutors in exchange for testifying against Marcus. He told me she was dying anyway. Jessica sobbed during her confession, which was later shared in court documents. He said she had cancer, that it was terminal, that we'd be doing her a favor by making sure she didn't suffer. He said he'd pay me $50,000. I needed the money. My son has medical bills. I wasn't thinking clearly, except I didn't have cancer. The mass on my ovary was a large fibroid, completely benign. Dr. Chen confirmed it after finally doing the surgery a week later. I was never dying. Marcus had lied about that too, or maybe Jessica had lied to justify her actions. Either way, they were both monsters. Amber Phillips was arrested as a co-conspirator. Initially, she claimed she had no idea Marcus was married, but that lie fell apart quickly when investigators found text messages between her and Marcus discussing getting rid of the wife and making sure she's not a problem anymore. Amber had known. She'd known from the beginning, and she'd actively helped Marcus plan my destruction. I loved him, Amber said in her statement. He said he was trapped in a loveless marriage. He said his wife was sick and would die soon anyway. He said we were just speeding up the inevitable. The inevitable. My death was supposed to be inevitable. A tragic complication during routine surgery. And then Marcus would have cried at my funeral, collected my insurance money, inherited my house, and moved his mistress into my home. The trial started 3 months later. Marcus pleaded not guilty to all charges. His lawyer argued that it was all a misunderstanding, that Marcus never intended to harm me, that the wedding to Amber was a mistake made in a moment of confusion, that the texts with Jessica were taken out of context. But the evidence was overwhelming. Dr. Sarah Chen testified about her suspicions, about how she'd discovered the wedding, about how she'd delayed my surgery to protect me. I've been a surgeon for 25 years, Dr. Chen said from the witness stand. I've seen a lot of awful things, but I've never seen a husband plot his wife's murder with such cold calculation. Marcus Wright is a predator who used his charm and his wife's trust to nearly get away with the perfect crime. Dr. James Liu testified about attending the wedding, about recording the ceremony, about how happy Marcus had looked while committing bigamy. Jessica Chen testified about the conspiracy, about how Marcus had manipulated her into agreeing to sabotage my surgery, about how he'd promised her money and a fresh start. And Amber testified. She'd made a deal with prosecutors to testify against Marcus in exchange for a reduced sentence. She told the jury everything. The 3-year affair, the promises Marcus made about getting rid of me, the wedding planning, the discussions about my life insurance money. He said she'd die during surgery, Amber said, crying on the stand. He said it would look natural. He said no one would ever suspect anything. And then we could finally be together, without hiding. When it was my turn to testify, I walked into that courtroom with my head high. The prosecutor asked me to describe my marriage to Marcus. I told them about 9 years of what I thought was love. I told them about trusting him completely. I told them about supporting him financially while he claimed his business was struggling. I told them about the house I paid for, the life I built, the future I thought we were creating together. And then I told them about waking up in that hospital recovery room and watching my husband marry another woman. How did you feel in that moment? The prosecutor asked. I felt like everything I'd ever known was a lie, I said. My voice was steady. I'd practiced this. I felt like the man I loved never existed. I felt like I'd been living with a stranger for 9 years. A stranger who was actively planning to kill me. Marcus sat at the defense table, refusing to look at me. He'd lost weight. His expensive suits hung loose on him. He looked old, tired, broken, good. I hoped he was suffering. I hoped every moment in that courtroom was torture for him. The jury deliberated for 6 hours. They found Marcus guilty on all counts: bigamy, fraud, conspiracy to commit murder, attempted murder. He was sentenced to 30 years in prison. 30 years. He'd be 72 when he got out. Jessica got 15 years for conspiracy and attempted murder. Amber got 8 years for conspiracy and fraud. All 3 of them destroyed. All 3 of them paying for what they tried to do to me. The divorce was finalized before Marcus even finished his first year in prison. I got everything. The house, the car, all of our joint assets. Marcus's business was liquidated to pay restitution and my legal fees. His mother tried to fight me for control of his assets, but Patricia demolished her in court. Your son tried to murder his wife, Patricia told the judge. She deserves every penny. I also won a civil suit against Marcus for emotional distress and fraud. $5 million in damages. He'd never be able to pay it, but his wages in prison would be garnished. Every cent he made for the rest of his life would come to me. It wasn't about the money. It was about making sure he suffered for what he'd done. Dr. Sarah Chen became a close friend. She'd saved my life in every way possible. She'd trusted her instincts, investigated when something felt wrong, and protected me when I was most vulnerable. "Thank you," I told her over coffee one afternoon, months after the trial. "Thank you for not letting him get away with it." "I'm a doctor," Dr. Chen said simply. "My job is to protect my patients. From disease, from accidents, and apparently from homicidal husbands." I started speaking publicly about my experience. I partnered with organizations that support victims of domestic abuse and fraud. I shared my story at conferences, on podcasts, in interviews. People needed to hear it. They needed to know that monsters don't always look like monsters. Sometimes they look like charming husbands with good jobs and nice smiles. Sometimes they sleep next to you every night while planning your death. I also started a foundation. I called it Trust Your Doctor, in honor of Dr. Sarah Chen. The mission was to support medical professionals who advocate for patients, who ask questions when something feels wrong, who refuse to look the other way when they suspect abuse. We've funded training programs for doctors to recognize signs of domestic violence and fraud. We've created protocols for medical professionals who suspect a patient is in danger. We've saved lives. Thank you for staying until the end. If this story gave you the justice you needed to see, check out the other videos on screen. They're just as satisfying. And if you haven't subscribed yet, what are you waiting for? See you in the next story. The surgery for my fibroid happened 6 months after Marcus's arrest. Dr. Chen performed it personally. Everything went perfectly. The mass was removed. The biopsy confirmed it was benign. I was fine. I'd never been dying. Marcus had lied about that too. Or maybe he'd genuinely believed I'd die during the surgery after Jessica sabotaged it. Either way, I survived. It's been 3 years since that day in the hospital recovery room when Dr. Chen showed me the video of Marcus's wedding. 3 years of healing, therapy, rebuilding my life from the ground up. I sold the house in Westchester. Too many memories, too many ghosts. I bought a beautiful loft in Brooklyn with floor-to-ceiling windows and a view of the Manhattan skyline. It's completely mine. No shared history, no contaminated memories. My career flourished. After the trial, I was promoted to Chief Marketing Officer at Crawford Industries. My salary doubled. I'm successful, independent, and completely self-sufficient. I don't need anyone to take care of me. I can take care of myself. But I did meet someone. His name is David. He's a trauma therapist. Ironically, we met at one of my speaking events. He'd been in the audience, and afterward, he approached me. "Your story is remarkable," he said. "Not just because of what happened to you, but because of how you've transformed it into something meaningful." We started talking. Coffee turned into dinner. Dinner turned into long walks through the city. And slowly, carefully, I let myself fall in love again. It's different with David. He knows my history. He knows my trauma. He knows I have trust issues and nightmares, and moments where I panic if someone gets too close too fast. And he's patient. He's kind. He's exactly what Marcus pretended to be. Except David is actually real. We've been together for a year now. He asked me to move in with him last month. I said yes, but I kept my loft. Just in case. Old habits die hard. Dear Marcus, you're reading this from prison. Or maybe you're not reading it at all. Maybe you've blocked out everything about me. About what you did. About how spectacularly you failed. But just in case you are listening, I want you to know a few things. First, I won. You tried to destroy me. And instead, you destroyed yourself. I'm living in a beautiful apartment in Brooklyn. I'm Chief Marketing Officer at a major corporation. I'm running a foundation that's helping people. I'm in love with a good man who actually respects me. And you? You're in prison. You lost your business, your reputation, your freedom, your future. Your mistress is also in prison. The nurse you conspired with is in prison. Everyone involved in your pathetic plot is paying for what they did. Second, I hope you think about what you lost every single day. I hope you remember the life we had, the life you threw away for a younger woman and an insurance payout. I hope you remember that I supported you, loved you, trusted you completely, and I hope you understand that you never deserved any of it. Third, I want to thank you. Yes, thank you, because what you did to me, as horrific as it was, taught me something crucial about survival. You taught me that trust should be earned, not given freely. You taught me that instincts matter. You taught me that sometimes the people closest to us are the most dangerous. And most importantly, you taught me that I'm stronger than I ever imagined, that I can face the worst betrayal possible and come out the other side, not broken, but rebuilt into something harder, smarter, more resilient. You wanted to kill me. Instead, you made me invincible. So thank you, Marcus. Thank you for being exactly who you are. Thank you for getting caught. Thank you for showing me that I don't need you, that I never needed you. I hope your cell is cold. I hope the food is terrible. I hope every single day for the next 30 years is miserable for you. Because while you're rotting in prison, I'm living my best life. I'm thriving. I'm happy. I'm free. And that's the best revenge I could ever have. You tried to write me out of the story. Instead, you wrote yourself out of existence. I win. You lose. Forever. Elena, P.S. Dr. Sarah Chen says, hello. She wanted me to tell you that she hopes you learned something from all this. Never underestimate a woman with a medical degree, excellent investigative skills, and a deep commitment to protecting her patients. She ruined your entire life with a Google search and a phone call to the Bahamas. That's got to sting. P.S. Amber sends her regards from the women's prison in Connecticut. Actually, that's a lie. Amber doesn't send her regards. She hates you. Apparently, she realized that marrying a man who plots to murder his wife wasn't the fairy tale she imagined. Who could have seen that coming? P.S. The house you thought you'd inherit. I sold it for $1.8 million. The profit went into my foundation. So every life we save, every woman we help, that's all funded by what you thought would be yours. How does it feel to know your failed murder plot is actively making the world better? One more thing, Marcus. I had the surgery you were so determined to turn into my death. Dr. Chen performed it perfectly. The fibroid was removed. I'm completely healthy. I'm alive. You're buried. That's called justice. Goodbye forever. Elena Wright. Epilogue. The unraveling continues. What I didn't include in that letter to Marcus, what he'll never know unless someone tells him, is just how far the destruction of his life actually reached. Because it wasn't just him who paid. Everyone connected to his scheme, everyone who enabled him, everyone who looked the other way while he built his house of lies, they all faced consequences too. Marcus's mother, Patricia Wright, lost everything trying to defend her son. She mortgaged her house to pay for his legal defense. She hired expensive lawyers who promised they could get the charges reduced, that they could paint Marcus as a victim of circumstance, that they could convince a jury he never actually intended to harm me. She spent $400,000 on his defense, money she didn't have, money she borrowed against her retirement, her home, her future. And when Marcus was convicted anyway, when the guilty verdict came down and he was sentenced to 30 years, Patricia's house went into foreclosure. I should feel bad about that. Maybe a good person would, but I don't. Because Patricia knew. She knew about Amber. She'd met Amber at family gatherings Marcus never told me about. She'd seen photos of them together. She'd watched her son live a double life and said nothing. When the foreclosure happened, Patricia tried one last time to get money from me. She showed up at my apartment building. I still don't know how she got the address and buzzed my intercom. "Elena, please," she begged through the speaker. "I know you're angry. I know Marcus hurt you terribly. But I'm his mother. I'm 70 years old. I'm going to be homeless. Can't you find it in your heart to help me?" I stood there in my beautiful loft, looking at the intercom panel, and I thought about it. I really did. I thought about the woman who'd welcomed me into her family 10 years ago, who'd taught me her recipes, who'd called me daughter. But then I remembered something. I remembered a conversation I'd overheard 2 years ago, before I knew about any of this. I'd been at Patricia's house for Sunday dinner. I'd gone to the bathroom, and on my way back, I heard Patricia and Marcus talking in the kitchen. "You need to end things with Elena," Patricia had said. "She's nice enough, but she's not the right fit for our family. You need someone younger, someone who'll give you children before you're too old." "I know, Mom," Marcus had replied. "I'm working on it." I'd pushed that memory away at the time, convinced myself I'd misheard or misunderstood. But I hadn't. Patricia had been encouraging Marcus to leave me for years. She'd probably celebrated when he started dating Amber. She'd probably helped him hide it from me. So I pressed the button on the intercom and said, very calmly, "No. You enabled your son's attempt to murder me. You knew what he was doing, and you said nothing. You don't get my help. You don't get my forgiveness. You get exactly what you deserve." I hung up. She kept buzzing for 10 more minutes, but I never answered again. Patricia ended up in a senior living facility in New Jersey, the cheap kind where residents share rooms and the smell of disinfectant never quite covers the smell of decay. She writes to Marcus in prison every week. He never writes back. Marcus's business partners also paid the price. When the criminal investigation expanded, forensic accountants discovered that Marcus had been embezzling from his own company for years. The $50,000 he'd promised Jessica, the nurse, that came from company funds. The wedding in Nassau? Company money. The house he'd bought for Amber? Also company money. His 3 business partners, men I'd known socially, men whose wives I'd considered friends, all faced civil lawsuits. They claimed they had no idea Marcus was stealing from the company, but the accountants proved otherwise. Email chains showing they'd noticed discrepancies but looked the other way because Marcus was the rainmaker, the one who brought in big deals. 2 of them went bankrupt from the lawsuits. The third one, Vincent Chen, actually tried to pin everything on Marcus, claiming he was an innocent victim of Marcus's manipulation. Vincent's wife, Laura, was smarter than that. She filed for divorce the day after Vincent was named in the lawsuit. She told me later, over coffee at a cafe in Midtown, that she'd always suspected something was wrong. The trips Marcus took, the way he'd brag about his weekends in Miami or Austin, the photos on his social media with different women, Laura said, stirring her latte. I asked Vincent about it once. He told me Marcus was just living his best life, that I should mind my own business. He said all successful men have arrangements. She'd said the word like it was poison. I should have told you. I should have warned you. I'm sorry. I didn't blame Laura. How could I? She'd been trapped in her own marriage to a man who thought cheating was just part of the lifestyle. But her apology mattered. It was more than Patricia had ever given me. The Crawford Industries Board of Directors, my employer, actually nominated me for a leadership award 6 months after the trial. Courage in crisis, they called it. I had to give a speech at the annual gala in front of 500 people. I talked about trust, about how we assume the people closest to us have our best interests at heart, and what happens when that trust is weaponized against us. I talked about Dr. Sarah Chen and how one person's willingness to ask questions saved my life. The standing ovation lasted 3 full minutes. Afterward, the CEO, Margaret Crawford herself, pulled me aside. "I need you to know something," Margaret said. She was a woman in her 60s, elegant and sharp-eyed. "2 years ago, Marcus approached me at a charity event. He asked me about your life insurance policy through the company. He wanted to know how much it was worth, who the beneficiary was, whether it could be changed." My blood went cold. "What did you tell him?" "I told him it was none of his business, and that if he had questions about your benefits, you should be the one asking them, not him." Margaret's expression hardened. "At the time, I thought he was just being controlling. Now I realize he was planning. He was figuring out all your assets, all your insurance, everything he'd inherit when you died." "Why didn't you tell me?" I asked, though I already knew the answer. Why would anyone suspect a husband of planning his wife's murder? It's too insane, too evil, too far outside the realm of normal human behavior. "I should have," Margaret said quietly. "I should have trusted my instincts. Consider this my apology. I'm doubling your salary and giving you a seat on the board of directors. You've earned it." That's how I became the youngest board member in Crawford Industries history. At 37 years old, I was making $600,000 a year plus stock options. Everything Marcus had wanted to steal from me, I earned myself. Everything he'd planned to take, I multiplied. The media attention from the trial opened other doors too. A publisher contacted me about writing a book, not just about my story, but about financial abuse in marriages, about medical manipulation, about how predators use the legal system and social expectations to trap their victims. I spent a year writing it. The surgery he planned, how my husband tried to murder me, and how I fought back. It was published by Simon & Schuster. It hit the New York Times bestseller list in its second week. The book tour was exhausting but cathartic. I spoke at bookstores, libraries, universities, women's conferences, and at every single event, women approached me with their own stories. "My husband controls all our money and won't tell me how much we have. My boyfriend insists on being the only one who handles our insurance and banking. My fiancé wants me to sign a bunch of documents I don't understand." Every single one of them was a red flag. Every single one could have been the beginning of a story like mine. So, I gave them Dr. Chen's advice. Trust your instincts. Ask questions. Demand transparency. And if your partner gets angry when you want information about your own life, your own finances, your own medical care, run. The book sold 300,000 copies in its first year. The advance was $500,000. The royalties were even more. I donated every single cent to my foundation. Not because I didn't need the money, I was financially secure by then, but because I wanted Marcus to know that even my suffering, even the worst thing he'd ever done to me, became fuel for something good. Jessica, the nurse who'd conspired with Marcus, tried to appeal her sentence. She argued that she'd been coerced, manipulated, threatened. The appeals court rejected her claim unanimously. "You are a medical professional," the judge wrote in the decision. "You took an oath to do no harm. You violated that oath in the most egregious way possible by agreeing to sabotage a patient's surgery for money. Your sentence stands. Jessica will be in prison until she's 47 years old. Her medical license was permanently revoked. Her son, the one she'd claimed needed the money for medical bills, was placed with his grandmother. I found out later that Jessica's story about her son's medical expenses was a lie. The boy was perfectly healthy. She'd wanted the money for plastic surgery and a new car. Some people are just greedy. Some people are just evil. Jessica was both. Amber, on the other hand, became a cautionary tale in a different way. While serving her 8-year sentence, she gave multiple interviews to magazines and podcasts, trying to rewrite herself as a victim. "I was young and in love," she told People magazine. Marcus told me his wife was cold, distant, that their marriage had been over for years. He said she was sick and dying, that he was just waiting for the inevitable. I believed him because I wanted to believe him. The comments section on that article tore her apart. Thousands of people calling her a liar, a homewrecker, a conspirator in attempted murder. The magazine ended up disabling comments because the backlash was so intense. Amber tried the same narrative on a podcast called Convicted: Stories from Prison. She cried. She apologized. She said she was a changed woman who'd found God and wanted to use her story to warn other women about predatory men. I listened to that podcast episode exactly once, and then I called my lawyer. Patricia filed a civil suit against Amber for defamation, because Amber had claimed during the interview that she'd been tricked and manipulated, that she'd had no idea Marcus was planning to hurt me, that she was just as much a victim as Elena. We had the text messages. We had emails where Amber explicitly discussed getting rid of me, collecting the insurance money, decorating my house after I was gone. She wasn't a victim, she was a willing participant. The podcast had to issue a retraction. Amber's early release for good behavior was denied. She'll serve every single day of her 8-year sentence. David, my boyfriend, my partner, my love, the man who taught me what healthy relationships actually look like, proposed to me on the 2-year anniversary of Marcus's arrest. We were at the Brooklyn Botanic Garden, walking through the cherry blossoms, when he stopped in front of a bench dedicated to someone's late wife. The plaque read, "She taught me that love is a choice we make every day." "That's what I want with you," David said, getting down on one knee right there among the pink petals and the tourists taking photos. Not a love based on lies or manipulation or control, a love based on choice. Every single day, I want to choose you, and I want you to choose me. Will you marry me? I said yes, because David had spent 2 years showing me, not telling me, who he was. He'd been patient with my trauma. He'd gone to therapy with me. He'd respected every boundary I'd set. He'd proven, day after day, that he was safe. We got married 6 months later in a small ceremony in the Brooklyn loft. Just close friends and family. Dr. Sarah Chen was my maid of honor. My mother cried happy tears. My sister gave a toast about resilience and rebirth. And this time, when I said, "I do," I meant it with my whole heart, because I knew exactly who I was marrying. No secrets, no lies, no hidden life waiting to destroy me. David and I honeymooned in Italy. 2 weeks of wine and pasta and art and love. No checking over my shoulder. No wondering if he was texting someone else. No anxiety about what he was hiding. Just peace. Just joy. Just the feeling of being with someone who actually loves me. We came back to Brooklyn, and I threw myself into expanding the foundation. Trust Your Doctor had helped over 5,000 women in 3 years. We'd opened chapters in 12 states. We'd trained over 200 medical professionals in recognizing signs of abuse and fraud. But I wanted to do more, so I started a legal fund. Any woman who suspected her partner was committing financial fraud, medical manipulation, or planning her harm could apply to our foundation for free legal representation. We partnered with law firms across the country who agreed to take these cases pro bono or at reduced rates. The first woman we helped was named Michelle. She was 42, married 15 years, and her husband had just increased her life insurance policy without her knowledge. She'd found the paperwork in his office, and something about it felt wrong. We paid for a private investigator who discovered her husband was having an affair with her cousin. We paid for a forensic accountant who found that he'd been stealing from their joint accounts for 3 years. We paid for a divorce lawyer who made sure Michelle got everything in the settlement. Michelle's husband is currently serving 7 years for fraud and embezzlement. Michelle is now the CEO of her own consulting firm and one of our foundation's biggest donors. That's the pattern. We save women. They rebuild their lives. They help save other women. The cycle of abuse gets interrupted. The cycle of strength gets amplified. Marcus tried to write to me from prison. Once, the letter arrived at my office at Crawford Industries. My assistant, Brenda, brought it to me with a concerned expression. "It's from the correctional facility in upstate New York," Brenda said carefully. "Do you want me to throw it away?" I almost said yes. I'd built a beautiful life without Marcus. I didn't need his words, his excuses, his attempts at manipulation. I'd won. He'd lost. The story was over. But curiosity got the better of me. I opened it. The letter was 5 pages long, handwritten on prison stationery. Marcus's handwriting had gotten worse, shakier, less confident. He'd aged in prison. I'd heard from Patricia's lawyer that he looked 20 years older, that the other inmates made his life hell once they found out he'd tried to murder his wife. Good. The letter started with an apology. "Dear Elena, I know you'll never forgive me, and you shouldn't. What I did was unforgivable. I was a coward and a monster, and I destroyed the best thing that ever happened to me." I almost laughed. Even in prison, even after everything, Marcus was still trying to manipulate me. The best thing that ever happened to him wasn't me. It was my money, my house, my insurance policy, my usefulness. He continued, "I think about you every day. I think about the life we had, the life we could have had if I hadn't been so stupid, so greedy, so evil. I threw away 9 years of marriage for what? For Amber? She won't even take my calls now. For money? I'll never see a cent of it. For freedom? I'm in a cell for the rest of my life." This part was true, at least. Amber had blocked all contact with Marcus. His mother had told me that, in one of her final attempts to get sympathy from me, Amber wanted nothing to do with him now that he couldn't provide money or freedom or the fantasy life she'd imagined. Marcus wrote, "I don't expect you to respond to this letter. I don't expect forgiveness or mercy or even acknowledgement. I just need you to know that I'm sorry. I'm sorry for every lie, every betrayal, every moment of pain I caused you. I'm sorry for trying to kill you. I'm sorry for being the kind of man who could even think about killing his wife." The letter went on like that for 5 pages. Sorry, sorry, sorry. A litany of apologies that meant nothing because they changed nothing. They didn't give me back the 9 years I'd wasted on him. They didn't erase the trauma of lying in a hospital bed, watching him marry someone else. They didn't undo the violation of knowing he'd conspired with a nurse to kill me during surgery. At the end of the letter, Marcus wrote, "I heard you got remarried. I'm glad. You deserve happiness. You deserve a man who treats you the way I should have. I hope he knows how lucky he is." I put the letter down and stared at it for a long moment. Then I fed it into the office shredder, watched the pages get pulled through the blades, turned into thin strips, destroyed. That's all Marcus's words deserved. Destruction. I never wrote back. I never acknowledged receiving the letter. As far as Marcus knows, it never reached me. And in a way, it didn't, because the woman he wrote to, the Elena who might have been moved by his apologies, who might have felt a twinge of sympathy or nostalgia or forgiveness, she doesn't exist anymore. She died in that hospital recovery room 3 years ago when Dr. Chen showed her the wedding video. The woman who emerged from that moment was someone new, someone harder, someone who knew that forgiveness is earned, not owed, and Marcus would never earn it. 3 years after the trial, 60 Minutes did a feature on my case. They interviewed me, Dr. Sarah Chen, Detective Sharon Reeves, and even played clips from Marcus's trial testimony. They titled the segment, "The Wedding He Hid: One Woman's Fight Against a Murderous Husband." 20 million people watched it. The next day, My foundation's website crashed from the volume of traffic. Women from all over the country, all over the world, reaching out, sharing their stories, asking for help, thanking me for speaking up. We hired 10 new staff members just to handle the influx. We opened 3 new chapters. We helped 800 women in the 6 months following that episode. Marcus watched the 60 Minutes segment from prison. His mother told me that in another unwanted phone call I let go to voicemail. She said he'd been devastated to see himself portrayed as a monster, that he'd cried watching it, that he wanted me to know he wasn't that person anymore. But he was that person. He'd always been that person. I'd just been too trusting to see it. The 5th anniversary of my near murder came and went. David and I spent it at a spa in the Berkshires, getting couples massages and drinking wine by a fireplace. We didn't talk about Marcus. We didn't dwell on the anniversary. We just enjoyed being together, being alive, being free. That night, as we lay in bed in our luxury suite, David asked me something he'd never asked before. Do you still have nightmares about him? I thought about it. Sometimes, I admitted. But they're different now. In the beginning, I'd dream about the surgery, about waking up dead, about Marcus pushing me downstairs or suffocating me with a pillow. Now, when I dream about him, I'm always the one with power. I'm always the one walking away while he begs me to stay. That's growth, David said, pulling me closer. That's your brain healing. He was right. I was healing. Not healed, I'm not sure I'll ever be completely healed from what Marcus did. But healing, getting stronger, building a life so beautiful that what he tried to do to me feels like a distant nightmare rather than a present reality. My foundation partnered with medical schools to develop a training program for future doctors. Recognizing domestic abuse in medical settings became a required course at 15 universities. We taught medical students to look for signs, partners who answer questions for their spouses, who insist on being present during examinations, who control medications or treatment plans, who seem overly concerned with life insurance or medical outcomes. Dr. Sarah Chen taught many of those classes herself. She'd become a national expert on medical manipulation in abusive relationships. She'd written papers, given speeches at conferences, trained thousands of medical professionals. You saved one woman's life, I told her during one of our regular coffee dates. And because of that, you've taught doctors how to save thousands more. We saved each other, Dr. Chen corrected. You trusted your instincts enough to let me delay the surgery. You were brave enough to face the truth. You did the hardest part, Elena. I just asked the right questions. On the 6-year anniversary of Marcus's arrest, I received an unexpected letter. Not from Marcus this time, but from Amber. She was up for parole. She'd served 6 years of her 8-year sentence, and she wanted me to write a letter supporting her early release. The audacity. The sheer, breathtaking audacity. Her letter was dripping with false remorse. Dear Elena, I know I don't deserve your forgiveness, but I'm asking anyway. I've spent 6 years in prison thinking about what I did, about how I hurt you, about how I let Marcus manipulate me into betraying another woman. I'm not that person anymore. I've completed every rehabilitation program available. I've earned my GED. I've been a model prisoner. I just want a chance to rebuild my life, to prove that I'm better than my worst mistake. Her worst mistake. She called conspiring to murder me her worst mistake. Like it was a typo on a resume, not a deliberate, calculated plot to end my life and steal everything I owned. I called Patricia, my lawyer, and read her the letter. She's delusional, Patricia said flatly. She actually thinks you might help her? Should I respond? I asked. Absolutely not. But I'll draft a letter to the parole board on your behalf. They need to know that Amber Phillips is still minimizing her crimes, still trying to manipulate people, still playing the victim. She shouldn't be released early. She should serve every single day of her sentence. Patricia's letter to the parole board was devastating. She included transcripts of Amber's text messages where she'd called me the obstacle, where she'd discussed decorating my house after I died, where she'd celebrated Marcus's plan. She included Amber's trial testimony, where she'd admitted to knowing about the murder plot. She included screenshots of Amber's podcast interview, where she'd lied about being manipulated. "This woman is not rehabilitated," Patricia wrote. "She is the same narcissistic, manipulative person she was 6 years ago. The only thing she regrets is getting caught. She should serve her full sentence, and the victim should never have to hear from her again." The parole board denied Amber's request. "She'll serve the full 8 years. She won't be released until she's 36 years old, with a felony record, no career prospects, and a reputation that will follow her forever. Sometimes I wonder if that's enough punishment, if 8 years is adequate payment for helping plan my murder. But then I remember that Amber's life is effectively over. She'll never have the career she wanted. She'll never have the easy, luxurious life Marcus promised her. She'll spend the rest of her days knowing that her greed and cruelty cost her everything. That's its own kind of prison." David and I started talking about children. I was approaching 40, and if we wanted kids, we needed to decide soon. The conversation was complicated because of my history with Marcus, the way he'd used the promise of future children to string me along for years, while never actually wanting them with me. "I'm terrified," I admitted to David one evening. "What if I'm terrible at it? What if I can't trust myself to protect them? What if I turn into someone who makes excuses for abuse because I want to believe in the fantasy?" David took my hands. "Elena, you survived a murder plot by being smart, observant, and willing to act on your instincts. You built a foundation that's helped thousands of women. You've spent 6 years teaching people how to recognize and escape abuse. You're literally the opposite of someone who makes excuses. You're the woman who burns the whole house down rather than live with lies." He wasn't wrong. I'd proven I could protect myself. I could protect our children too. We started trying, and 3 months later, I found out I was pregnant. I was 40 years old, finally having the child I'd wanted for so long. The child Marcus had dangled like a carrot, always saying someday, while secretly planning to kill me before that someday ever came. Standing in that bathroom, looking at the positive pregnancy test, I thought about the life growing inside me. A life Marcus had tried to prevent. A life that existed because I'd survived, because Dr. Chen had saved me, because I'd been strong enough to fight back. This child would grow up knowing their mother was a warrior. They'd know that when someone tried to destroy her, she destroyed them instead. They'd learn that trust is earned, that instincts matter, that survival sometimes means being ruthless. I called David first. He cried. Happy tears, proud tears, grateful tears. We'd created life together. We'd built something beautiful out of the ashes of my trauma. Then I called Dr. Sarah Chen. "I have news," I said. "I'm pregnant, and I want you to be my obstetrician." There was a pause on the line. Then Dr. Chen said, "Elena, I'm a surgical oncologist, not an OB/GYN. I don't deliver babies. I know. But I trust you more than anyone in the world. You saved my life. You saw what others missed. You protected me when I was most vulnerable. I want you involved in this pregnancy, even if it's just as an advisor. I need to know you're watching." Dr. Chen was quiet for a long moment. Then she said, "I'll coordinate with your OB. I'll be at every major appointment. I'll make sure everything is done right. This baby will be born healthy, Elena. I promise you that." And she kept that promise. For 9 months, Dr. Chen attended every ultrasound, every checkup, every test. She asked questions the regular OB didn't think to ask. She double-checked medications and procedures. She made sure I was safe, healthy, protected. My daughter was born on a sunny morning in May, exactly 7 years after the surgery Marcus had tried to turn into my death. We named her Sarah, after the woman who'd saved my life. Sarah Hope Wright Thompson, David's last name and mine, hyphenated, because I'd kept Wright as a reminder of what I'd survived. Holding my daughter for the first time, I thought about everything Marcus had tried to take from me. My life, my future, my house, my money, my children, everything. He'd taken nothing. I'd kept it all, and I'd gained so much more: a career I loved, a foundation that helped thousands, a husband who actually respected me, and now a daughter who would grow up knowing her mother was unbreakable. Marcus would die in prison, never holding his child, his legitimate child, anyway. Amber had given birth during her incarceration, a daughter she'd named Madison. The baby had been immediately placed with Amber's sister. Amber saw her daughter twice a year during supervised prison visits. By the time Amber was released, Madison would be 8 years old and would barely know her mother. That's what betrayal costs. That's what evil earns. Not just prison, but the loss of everything that matters: family, freedom, future, love. I sent Marcus a photo of baby Sarah. Just one photo, no message. I wanted him to see what I'd built, what I'd created, what existed because I'd survived his murder attempt. He never wrote back, but his mother told me, in yet another unwanted message, that Marcus had cried when he saw the photo, that he'd taped it to the wall of his cell, that he looked at it every day and thought about the life he'd thrown away. Good. I hope it tortures him. I hope every single day for the next 24 years of his sentence, he looks at that photo and remembers what he lost, who he could have been if he'd just been a decent human being. But he wasn't decent. He was a monster in a charming man's clothing, and now he's paying for it forever. As for me, I'm living, truly living, not just surviving, but thriving. I have a daughter who will never doubt her mother's strength. I have a husband who chooses me every single day. I have a career that challenges me. I have a foundation that changes lives. And I have a story that I've turned into power. Marcus wanted to bury me. Instead, I'm the one who's standing, breathing, fighting, winning. That's the only ending that matters.